Hi, I'm Nick Agar and I'd like to introduce to you the new decorating tool by Henry Taylor. And what I love best about it is it's really easy to use. Let's go and give it a go. So here are the tools we're going to be using. First of all, we have the preparation tool, and this is for cutting the coves in the surface. Then we have the decorating tool, which cuts a pattern into the cove. Lastly, the point tool, which we use to define stroke enhance the designs around the edge that we've cut. Do remember that both these tools need to be kept very sharp. Okay, I'm going to mark the centre so I can see it clearly, and then using the preparation tool we're going to cut below the centre line and cut a couple of coves in which to decorate. Very sharp tool. It's polished like a carving tool, so it's very sharp. It wants to be a similar sized cove to match the size of the cutter that you're going to be using. So we'll just stop that and offer the cutter up and see how the match is. Let's see how it fits. Oh, there's a little knot in there. Not to worry, it will cut over the top of that as well. That looks okay. Now I need to drop the tool rest just a little bit. This takes a bit of practice to get the right height, and of course the depth of the cove that you're cutting will give a different pattern. We need to reduce the lathe speed to about 800 RPM. Let's see how we get on. I'm going to cut at two different angles with the tool, one up here and one slightly lower. Press quite hard. It's good to leave a little wall thickness between the coves so you don't break out wood on the top. Let's see how it looks. Now we've got some fibres lifted on the surface here when we've cut the pattern, so we're going to take a natural bristle brush and knock some of those off. This is not synthetic or nylon bristles, they would melt under the friction of the lathe. We'll simply press this on, and that should give us a better finish. We don't want to sand it because that's going to sand away all the nice crisp detail that we've just put on the piece. So we've got two basic patterns in these coves. To enhance them further, I'm going to use a point tool, and I'm just going to push it in either side of the pattern and highlight the cut. Now I'm going to put a pencil line so that I can make that a little easier to see exactly where I want to cut with the point tool. Again, this wants to remain below centre. Adjust the tool rest so you're comfortable and just push in. As you can see, that really punches out the pattern, punctuates it. Okay. So we've burnished that with the brush, it now looks a lot better. Now I'm only playing here and we've still got a little bit of wood left in the middle, so I think I'm going to cut a cove in the middle and try the texture tool in there. Once again, we need to lower the tool rest a little, and it's important to remember not to cut with the very front tip of the tool, so I'm not going to go straight on. It's not a drill. I'm going to cut just left of centre on the side of the ball about here. Hope you can see that. Okay, let's give it a go. Remember to keep the speed of the lathe down to about 800. Tool rest isn't quite right, so we need to drop it a little bit more. And pressing in. You should feel comfortable. You can almost feel when it's cutting correctly. Give it time to do the pattern. Oh, that looks great. Now you can play to your heart's content, and that's the beauty of this tool, because if you make a mistake you just cut a little more out and decorate it again. And I could use the point tool and define these edges a little more. Remember, the pattern doesn't reach the very top of the edge, therefore weakening it. Wow, it's always a pleasant surprise. Now we can see the knot, but that's good old Mother Nature. But notice the difference in the patterns cut by the tool, held in those three different positions. And that's really up to you. The variation that can be done is enormous. Okay, now we've got a piece of wood mounted between centres. We're going to use the preparation tool to cut some coves. You may of course prefer to use a spindle gouge for this, but this will do an equal and adequate job. I'm holding the tool this way so that you can see it on the camera more easily, but use a hold that's comfortable for you. I'm working about on the centre line, cutting a little bit at a time, working from side to side, and once again I'm imagining the shape of the cutter in the wood and the cove that I'm cutting. Let's try that for size. Let's see how that is for size. That looks okay to me. And remember, we're cutting with the top left hand part of the sphere and pressing hard into the edge of the wood, leaving space for the pattern not to be breaking out on the top of the cut. We need to lower the tool rest and again reduce the speed of the lathe to about 800 RPM. Let's give it a go. Hold it in there for a little longer than you think necessary, pressing hard. And there's our lovely texture and pattern within the cove. So really we're still texturing on end grain here as well as side grain to give us the best technique. So we're going to remove some of these little fibres that have risen up once again with the natural bristle brush. Going to increase the lathe speed a little for this and burnish. That improves the finish. Okay, now if we want we can move further on and enhance it. We can use the point tool, and in addition to that we can once again use some colour if we want. And once again we can use the brush to knock off the fibres. One of the advantages of using the point tool is that it gives us this lovely crisp cut next to our design. Look at the detail on the end of this decoration. It's absolutely clean and crisp, and that is a really great thing about this tool. Remember, we're still working below centre. Okay, so that fits nicely. And just as a reminder, we've left plenty of wood between the two coves, just so that we don't bring the cutting edges together and cause breakout at the top. I've left lots of wood between the two, and suggest when you're first practicing the tool that you do similar until you get used to using it. Different timbers will give slightly different results. The harder the timber, the smaller this gap will need to be, but you'll find that out by experimentation. That looks good. Right, this time I'm going to cut on these two faces so you can see from the camera angle, and I'm going to have the tool raised up in the air for that face and bring it down near the centre for that face. Once again, mustn't forget lower the tool rest. That looks about right. Okay, reduce the low speed, off we go. Press hard. Now let's come down to the next one. You can hear the difference. Remember, we are cutting into the wood, not impressing it. So there's a very visible difference between the two angles. It's a very shallow spiral on this side and a much sharper one on that side. It's infinitely variable, really. Now once again we can punctuate either side of the pattern with the point tool. And again, beautiful, crisp, clean edge on the end of these feathers, if you want to call them. What a great design. How's that for detail?